Hey guys, welcome back to Inverted Adventures RC, and we are moving on to the next episode of the team associated B74.1d four-wheel drive buggy build. Check it out. Alright guys, welcome back to episode 4. Last episode in episode 3, if you watched, we did bag 3, which is the differentials, front and rear. So now we're going to move on to building the housings themselves. They're pretty much the same. The bearing bag that comes in bag 4 includes bearings for a bunch of other stuff, so you got to make sure you sort them out and get just what you need. And the screws are split pretty evenly. There's just one extra screw that goes in the rear, so make sure that's separate. But I kind of sorted it all out, and we're going to start by building the front and then build the rear. Alright, so the first thing you're going to do is take what they're calling the gearboard inbox, which is the inner side of the diff, or the gearbox, I guess you call it, and the bottom part, and you'll take the only flathead screw here, and that would be the 2.5 by 8 millimeter. Run that down in that housing. Make sure that's snapped in right. So that's going to, I'm going to loosen that just a little bit until we put the other side in, so it's not straining that. And then you are going to take one of these smaller bearings. They are the 5 by 10 by 4s, and slide that in the end there. And then from the inside, you're going to do the same thing. So you're going to want bearing in the outside, bearing in the inside. And then you're going to take the pinion, the diff pinion, slide that through the two of them. And there you are. So next, after that, you take your diff, which we built in the last step, and you're going to want to slide that in here, just like so. And what they want you to do is put a shim on each side. We can get that shim over there. So you're going to shim that. Actually, before you put this in, take that back up a little bit. Take that shim both sides, and then take your larger bearing, slide that over top, slide that over top. If it'll go down on there. Okay. Then you're going to slide all of that down in there. You're going to see how that turns. Now, it says if the gears are rough to turn, you're going to move the shim on one side, on the, on the gear side to the other side, and you'll loosen it up. Then you can run some break-in runs, and you might be able to switch back to 1-to-1. This doesn't feel too bad, to be honest with you, so I'm going to leave it like this. We'll see how the other one goes, but I really don't think this feels too bad. Doesn't feel rough. Seems like it spins pretty nice. So we'll get it all together and we'll try it again. But for now, I'm going to take this back out. And you want some of this black grease, which is probably a better way to put this on than with your finger, but that's how I'm going to do it. And just rub some of that on here. So that's those gears, where those gears mesh up, there's a little bit of lubricant. So then go ahead, slide that back in there. Make sure your bearings are pushed down. There you go. And now we're there. And then next, you're going to take the outer part of the gearbox and slide that over top. So once you have that on, if you're building the front gearbox, which is what we're going to do first, you're going to take your 3 longer 3x12s, and you're going to run them through both of these upper holes, and then into this bottom one. I believe they're going to be a bigger bit size than that. They are. Swap out your bits. You're going to snug those down, swap back to your other bit, and snug that front bolt now that the back's running. And then just give that a spin. See how it feels. I think it feels pretty good. I don't think the shims need messed with, so we're going to go ahead and leave it like that. All right, so next, there's two different CVA bones, a 95mm and a 64mm. And they say right on, I mean obviously the 64 is going to be shorter, but just in case, they say right on there, if you're building the front, which is what we're going to do first, you're going to take the 64, and there's this small little insert. You're going to cover that grease and slide it into the end here, because one end has a pin in it, the other end is open. So then what you're going to do, there's two coupler pieces. One will slide inside the other. The blue, the nice shiny blue one goes on the outside. The smaller black one goes on the inside. And you're going to slide that over top. And what you're going to do, you're going to line those holes up and then take the pin, and the pin will slide into those holes if you can keep it from sliding around. There we go. So now you're going to have this nice joint here. And then take the blue aluminum piece and slide it over top. And that's what's going to hold that pin in. So then after that, you got your set screw. And you're going to take your blue Loctite, put a dab of blue Loctite on there, put more on my finger than I did the screw, and once that's lined up, so you're going to line that up, and there's one shim for each side. Take your shim, slide it over top of the outer end of your diff pinion. Then you're going to slide that CVA bone over top so all the holes line up there. Then you're going to take your set screw, run it down in there. Give it a little snug. And there you are. And again, you're going to want to make sure that spins nice and free. I really think this spins free enough and well enough that you don't need to worry about moving the shims, at least on this one. But as I said, in the directions it says if it is binding or it's rough, then you can move those shims side to side to loosen it up until you get some break-in runs in. But I think this is pretty good. Now you're more or less going to do the same thing with the back. So I'm going to start the back, and once we get the housing together, it's the same thing but with some different shafts and stuff. There's some other bolts. So I'm going to do that part, and once we get to there, I'll be right back. All right, so we have the housing mostly assembled. I also, again, feel like this is plenty smooth enough that we don't have to mess with the shims. The difference to this one, when you put these three screws on the back side in, you're also going to put this screw in up top here. Not really sure what that does, but that's what they tell you to do. So I'll change my bits out here. I'm assuming there's one that's going to go on the front eventually, but there's probably something that has to bolt into that spot. So I'm going to run that down. Alright, so then you're going to do the same thing you did with the back, except with the 95mm shaft instead of the 64mm shaft. Run some grease around here as this pivot's in that. Slide that in. Take your inner coupler. Take your pin. Some of that grease off my fingers. Put your outer part on. Then you're going to take your whole housing, put your shim in there, get your set screw ready, put some Loctite on there. Whoop, too many. Not too many, I shouldn't say. Too much. Slide that back in here. Then you're going to line all 3 holes up. Hole in the inner coupler, hole in the outer coupler, as well as the inner housing there. Whoop, I think we didn't line her up right. Run that down in there. Hold on to this nice and tight so you don't twist anything. Snug your set screw in, and there we have it. So there are your front and rear diffs assembled, and that is going to be the end of bag 4. So I think we're going to call a video here. Like I said, I like to keep these kind of short. Not sure where these go. I'm assuming they're for a later step. So I'm going to set those aside. back in bag 4 here so I don't lose them. Next up is going to be shock towers, I believe, for step 5, and putting front and left sides on the gearboxes themselves so they'll mount in there. So we will get back to that in the next episode. That's probably going to, it seems like it's going to be, we're getting to the point where the steps are a little bit longer. So some of these are just going to be one step, but a lot of this stuff is really important. So getting these built properly and your shims put in there right is a pretty big deal. So you don't want to rush through that. And I also, like I said, I don't want to make the videos too long. So that's the end of step 4. If you guys liked it, please leave a thumbs up. I appreciate that. Leave some comments. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. And make sure you subscribe so you can see all the rest of the episodes in this video and all of the other content on the channel. So I appreciate you guys watching. So until next time, I hope you guys are enjoying some RC stuff, even though we're in the middle of winter here. At least in Pennsylvania, the weather's been pretty good, so hopefully you guys are taking advantage of that. If not, and you're sitting inside, be sure to check out the other content I have and stick around for the next episode.